See? It's like the headphone and the plug-in thing are right at the same place.
Right. If it were like on a cable,
Mm-hmm.
like this, that would work just fine. But because yours is in the base of it, it needs basically a flat surface.
Yeah, so all I have to do is get then an adapter for this, and then I can still use the headphones off of this thing, and then just run it into
something very similar to this, only instead of a 2-ring, it will need to be a 3-ring, so that your microphone and left and right audio will work.
Okay.
They might have one at Radio Shack. You could check tomorrow. It would probably only cost a few bucks, or we order one from Amazon and have it. So we're live on YouTube right now. So I'm sure our non-viewers, since no one is viewing yet, don't care much. But if people are watching the recording afterwards, they're probably like, do these idiots know that they're actually on? Because they're talking to each other and maybe they don't know they're on. Oh, this is weird. Oh, what are they doing? All right. So why don't we do this? Let's start the show. If you guys want to mute your microphones for the bumper music, that gives me the cleanest signal to edit from, and we'll get rolling. Robinson, I can't hear you if you've been talking at all. Nothing. It's gonna be one of those nights. Okay, I can hear. You can hear me. I can hear the microphone.
Oh, son of a bitch!
I always know the difference because that sound I'm hearing is when it's the mic from your headphones, because it's those shitty Samsung.
No, I have the right microphone.
Now you do. Yes, because I don't hear that hissy sound anymore. Can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine.
Then why don't you mute yourself and we'll start the bumper music.
Okay.
Rock and roll. Waiting on you. Then maybe I'll just mute you myself. Still waiting on you. Still waiting on you, Robinson.
Wait, why? What?
I asked you to mute yourself.
I thought I did.
Oh, there you go. Now he's muted. He's a smartass to the core. All right. Starting broadcast. Let's start that over again. Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are coming to you live on YouTube.com for now, and Radio Valencia a little bit later in the week. I am here with my good friends, Robinson and Chaz. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
We still can't hear Robinson.
Hello, gentlemen.
There he goes.
I knew that was going to happen. I just knew it. I watched it happen in slow motion, like when you're about to get into a car accident, and it's like, no, don't forget.
Yeah, okay, let's try it again.
No, we can't try it again. We already did it. The moment is
We're already
lost.
going.
The moment is gone. That's all right. That's fine, 2 weeks. Fine. That's 2 weeks in a row that we fucked up the intro, though. We have failed at life. Chaz.
Yes.
I'm gonna buy you a gift.
Ooh. Okay.
That gift is going to be some WD-40 for your goddamn chair.
Oh.
Woo!
You can hear that?
Oh my God, can we hear that?
Okay. So I will go get another chair.
I tried to edit it out of last week's show, but unfortunately you would move while you were talking, and I didn't want to edit you out, so I just left it. But I think you'd always been in your living room, so you were maybe on a different chair, and now you're doing it from a different room on a more comfy chair, which I can appreciate being in a more comfy chair. But like I said, perhaps I will just loan you some lubricant. I'm sure you have plenty of lubricant. but it's a different kind of lubricant for your chair. He's not even there right now to hear me ragging on him, is he? So you are listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. We are streaming live on YouTube.com, coming to you later on Radio Valencia 87.9 FM, RadioValencia.fm, and all around the world via iTunes podcasts. We kind of hit a milestone last week. Over 3,000 subscribers to our humble radio program on the podcast. And then, like the universe does, I was watching the new Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and they had some ass clown on named PewDiePie, who has something like 40 million YouTube subscribers, and that made me feel like a piece of shit. Because this guy is from Sweden, and he's some hipster with a hipster hairdo, and all he does is play video games with a little video of his face in the corner while talking to the camera about the video game that he is playing. And just through YouTube ad payments, like advertising revenue that he gets from YouTube and the number of subscribers and viewers that watch his nonsense, this motherfucker brought home $7 million last year. $7 million to play video games and react to those video games on YouTube.
And how old is he?
Probably like 12. I don't know.
I think it's
20.
That just seems wrong for some
20
reason.
something. He is definitely not more than 25 years old, and he's Swedish, and his name is PewDiePie, and this is what he does for a living.
There's actually a lot of people that do that.
God bless him. God bless him. This is me green with envy, but at the end of the day, we're providing a public service, goddammit. And this guy, PewDiePie, he is playing video games.
Does he do this when he says hello?
Every time. Every time he says his name, he does that. And
okay.
So apparently that's what you on YouTube you have. I hope I don't get sued. That's all I'm gonna say. I hope I don't get sued. I'm pretty sure YouTube is basically free to everyone to use for any reason. Copyright Mackenzie Media LLC 2015. But if it's got a general use license on YouTube. So when you post on YouTube, Google doesn't own it, nobody owns it. But somehow this clown made $7 million playing video games.
Advertisers.
It is. It's all about ads. So when you play a video on YouTube, why is it that sometimes there's a 30-second ad that you have to watch, that you can skip after 3 seconds? Other times, there's a 30-second ad that you cannot skip. And then sometimes there's no ad whatsoever.
Other than the little square box at the bottom.
The little banner ad at the bottom?
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
But I think for most videos, there's no ad at all. I think you get the banner ad when you have some views.
Right.
You get the skippable ad when you have a lot of views. And
you're not going to get anything if you don't monetize your videos.
Yeah, you have to click a button somewhere.
You have to monetize it in your management profile.
Right, and
then the marketers start watching your numbers. And once you reach a certain number, then they approach you.
And you get all these cool analytics programs that you can look at too, like your traffic, number of viewers, where they're coming from, the social media interactions, if people repost your stuff in other places. It's pretty cool what you're able to do to track that kind of stuff. We currently have nobody watching us. So it would be silly for me to look at those numbers unless I wanted to make myself feel bad. So I don't do it yet. Now, our podcast numbers, on the other hand, I watch those because those are pretty fun to watch because they grow and grow and grow and grow. And maybe soon we will make $7 million a year like PewDiePie. That would be cool.
You have something on your YouTube because it's you own it. There's some way to see how many people are watching right now, right?
I see it right here.
Oh, okay.
You don't see that?
Oh, I see it. There it is.
Okay.
No, those are the subscribers.
No,
those aren't the people that are watching now.
You may not have the same view that I have. I have a control panel. I can mute you. I can boot you from the show if you piss me off, like Bill O'Reilly or something. Okay. And then it tells me the name of the show. I can start and stop the broadcast. I can copy the links to embed the video, or it's pretty cool. I have a lot of control over here. I can even put like a fancy background in, set up questions and answers sessions. It's pretty neat.
If you see a name in there that looks like you can't read it, pronounce it because it's in Vietnamese. I have a very special friend who's watching the show tonight. And
well, hello, very special friend. Hi. It doesn't tell me names.
I don't want to say her name because I don't want to put her on the spot. But
understood.
Hi.
I can't see names anyway. It just tells me numbers.
Oh, well, that's good.
They're like Jews. Was that too soon? It's too soon? Okay. Just making Is it?
Wow.
What?
Edit that out.
All right.
Do we need crickets?
Yeah.
You guys get really weird when I make racist jokes. You know that?
Yeah.
And you guys get really weird, like, oh man, I hope my mom's not watching. It's the internet. I am equal opportunity racist. Remember that.
Okay.
So this is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, streaming live on YouTube, coming to you later on Radio Valencia. We have a really great show on Radio Valencia tonight in about 90 minutes from last week, which we started a new segment on the Sober Happy Hour last week without knowing it. But the new segment is called SHHRP Revisits. And what that is, because I just made it up, is when we do like a part 2 of a show that we've already done, like we revisited Am I an Addict last week. The segment is called SHHRP Revisits. So the blog post that turns, it's chirp. Chirp. It's kind of like Jeb for president. So Sherp Revisits is going to be an ongoing segment as we run out of topics. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, I have all this food that's about to spoil in my refrigerator, so I'm going to create a chef's special menu.
So it's leftovers, basically.
Exactly, leftovers, precisely.
Okay.
So I liked the choice for topic this evening because it's a little unconventional and might not be something that people familiar with this program would expect for us to cover, because it's weird. I'm not sure that it falls into the same addiction category as your standard addictions with bunny rabbit ears. You know, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, sex addiction, food addiction, gambling addiction. Because, and maybe I'm ignorant, I admit to that, But performance-enhancing drugs is what we're going to talk about tonight. And I guess the real question that I would have is, are performance-enhancing drugs addictive? And if they are, how so? And the last thing that popped into my mind was, what happens after? Because typically, you're not taking performance-enhancing drugs forever, right? There will come a point in your professional sports career, if that's why you're taking them, where there won't be a need to continue to use the performance-enhancing drugs. So when you stop using them, what happens to you? What happens to your body? What happens to your mind? What happens to your legacy? And we will talk about all of that tonight on the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. What about this topic did you, Chaz or Robinson, find interesting?
Well,
Robinson,
of course,
here you go.
My first thought was performance-enhancing drugs. I'm not into sports, so I immediately thought of sexual performance-enhancing drugs like Viagra.
Oh.
And because I'm a pervert and I think about sex a lot.
All the time.
And there are a plethora, I mean a metric fuck ton of, oh my God, so many supplements out there that claim to be the source of, a great sexual enhancement, and it's just unbelievable how many things there are. And it's kind of sad, but some people need them.
Well, and what's funny is most performance-enhancing drugs that are like supplements for sexual stuff, even these performance enhancers that tell you it's gonna sharpen your cognitive abilities or improve your memory, and when there are these supplements that even on the bottle it says these statements are not approved by the FDA. Most of them, not all, but most of them are bullshit.
Well, right.
You had something to say.
There are also nootropics.
What's that mean?
They're performance-enhancing drugs for your brain, not for your body, that make you really super sharp and think and have a really good memory for studying. If you read if you take one of these drugs, like D-cyclosamine is one of them, and if you take this drug in a very small dose, it becomes a nootropic and it enhances your brains. And if you read a book right after you take it, then you have like perfect recall of everything in the book. And if you need to go back and reference something, you remember exactly what page it was on, and it's that kind of thing. So
these are what are referred to as cognitive enhancers.
Yes, cognitive enhancers.
Right. So the idea being the increase of memory capacity, essentially being able to control your own mind, if you will. So what I found interesting about and I'm not sure if it's pronounced, is it pronounced nootropics or nootropics?
I've always heard it nootropics.
Nootropics. That makes sense. It's
N-E-U. N-E-U.
It's N-O-O.
Yes.
No? Oh, no, like as a noosphere.
Sure.
Well, can I kind of jump in here as far as what I was wanting to bring up during this was the one drug or medication that's often cited as being performance enhancing is Ritalin or Adderall. And a lot of times what people will do is they'll take it just like they would for a nootropic or something. They'll take it trying to study or something like that. And it gets a lot of flack from a lot of mainstream society as far as what it does. And a lot of folks don't understand that without it, you would be actually at a disadvantage. For people who take it and need it, it's not performance enhancing, it's simply correcting for a disability or hardship that they would otherwise experience if they didn't have it. So, but a lot of people will take it for that exact same reason, to to study, to stay up later, to pay attention, just to be that sharper or something. And that kind of go ahead.
So I had friends, obviously, growing up as we got a little bit older, who loved to take Adderall. I mean, it was a big, and probably still is a pretty big problem, especially like in college-age students. What would it actually do if somebody like me were to take a dose of Adderall?
Well, what it is it's methylphenidate, really. And what that does is thank you. It's a stimulant, basically, is what it comes down to. It's a stimulant. And I can tell you at least my experience with how it works on me. It slows the processing down because, let's say, take driving, for instance. If I'm driving and I don't have it, everything is jumping out at me. Every car, every sound, everything is just jumping out, and I can't process it fast enough. So what's going on is, because I can't process it fast enough, things seem to be coming at me very fast, and I can't differentiate between it.
It's like a slap in the face.
Pretty much, I get the world's worst road rage. You just wanted to use that, didn't you?
Yes, very much.
No, I get the world's worst road rage without Ritalin, but when I do have it, what it does is it's able to speed up the processing, so kind of everything else slows down a little bit more.
Yes, that makes perfect sense.
Along.
An example would be if you have, oh God, like if you have a lot of sugar. You're eating something that's really sweet, and then you taste something normal. You can't taste it; it doesn't taste right. And then you eat something salty, and it balances it back out to your taste buds back out. So it kind of does the opposite effect.
Like when you jump into a really cold swimming pool, and then you get out of that cold swimming pool, and you jump into a jacuzzi. And you feel like your skin's gonna melt off.
Right.
I think so.
Or if you take a
jacuzzi, well, the jacuzzi's not hotter than it would have been if you just jumped into the jacuzzi without getting into the cold pool first.
Exactly.
How about this? So here's an example. The Matrix. Okay. Remember, they were moving really fast, but to them it was slowed down.
Yes.
That's it. That's what it's more like. It's
taking Adderall.
You're processing faster.
Neo.
But it's slower down.
All right. So, PSA. Taking Adderall will not make you Neo. So don't take it if you're not prescribed it by your doctor or dentist.
Dentist?
You guys don't get my jokes. It's
no, obviously.
If we don't get your jokes, no one else is getting your jokes, which means they're not.
There you go.
So, okay, here's something really interesting that I thought about. Well, at least I think it's interesting. It may not be interesting at all. But, so performance enhancers, I think really quickly we've determined performance enhancers aren't just blood boosters or anabolic steroids or the normal performance enhancers that people associate with that idea of like an athlete cheating and using drugs to be better at the sport that they're taking. I think this conversation already has proven the point that a performance enhancer could be Ritalin, Adderall to increase your cognitive performance, and that could be a good thing for somebody who suffers from an attention disorder.
There you go.
It could also be something like Viagra or Cialis for somebody who can't get a boner and would like to get a boner. That's a whole nother conversation, because I think my body is smarter than I am. My brain is smarter than I think I am. And so if my brain says,
except at the moment,
it's probably not a good idea to get a boner and have sex, to trick my boner into functioning for sex. That's why you see a lot of old men dying from heart attacks mid Viagra boner, because they probably aren't in the best physical shape for sex. So that can be dangerous. Taking Ritalin or Adderall because you have to cram for an exam when you don't actually have an attention problem can be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And I like the analogies that you guys were using, because I think they make a lot of sense. But what came to my mind was, so it's only happened a couple handfuls of times in my life, but there have been times in my life where I have experienced an anxiety attack, a panic attack. And when I was younger, I didn't know what was going on. I just felt really strange, and I felt like the world around me had sped up, and it was I couldn't slow it down.
You couldn't process it.
And or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it was that the world around me slowed way down, and I felt like I was okay. Your story was that the world sped up, and that taking the medication slows things down and allows you to process it. When I have a panic attack, the world around me slows way down. But to me, I have maintained the same speed, so I perceive myself as going way too fast. And then the
headed for like a crash or something.
Right. So it's happened to me a couple of times in my life while I've been driving, and that's really scary because I feel like I'm going 200 miles an hour. It hasn't happened very many times, and it wasn't until my early 20s that I finally put it together that that's what I was experiencing was some sort of an anxiety attack. And it happens so rarely that it's not something that concerns me or that I've ever talked to a doctor about or anything like that. I don't know what triggered them. I don't know, but they come and then they go pretty quickly. And but yeah, that whole concept of being able to process those syntax, whatever things that go off in your brain, and the neurons and the
synapses, all that.
Syntax. I don't know. Synapse.
Synapse.
Thumbtacks. I don't know. But when shit starts firing the wrong way, that can be really scary. But it can also be very disruptive. So for a kid who can't focus in class, and the teacher's just telling him to stop being a bozo, that can be very disruptive to that child's ability to absorb information. So the drugs that we've already talked about can be very beneficial to that person. When it comes to other types of performance enhancers, I would say in recent years, a very big and disgusting story about our Lord and Savior Lance Armstrong, the first man on the moon, when he won 7 straight Tour de France's. I'm sorry, he wasn't the first guy on the moon. He was the trumpet player from New Orleans, right? I don't remember.
One of those Armstrongs.
Yeah, one of those Armstrongs. I don't know.
Yeah, strong arms.
Yep. And legs, apparently. Stretch Armstrong. That's who we're talking about. The blood doping that he was doing is like, and literally it's called blood boosters, but it's also AKA blood doping, which sounds weird because you are literally replacing the blood in your body. And what was so bizarre about the story about Louis Armstrong was, Lance Armstrong, was that they had blood in a refrigerator that they had like some armed guard standing in front of 24/7 to make sure that nobody could find out what they were doing. And they had this boosted blood ready for these transfusions, essentially. And the idea is to increase the amount or increase the oxygen carrying capacity of the blood beyond its natural capacity, so that for endurance, and somebody like Lance Armstrong, who was running these marathon bicycle races, would be able to just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And this was his entire team was doing this.
I got something.
Go.
You want to know how this stuff kind of can be addictive. Well, maybe it's not exactly. I mean, even this blood doping thing, it's a process, but it may as well be, something like using anabolic steroids or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, if you consider the effort and everything that went into doing this this performance enhancing technique that wasn't exactly legit, so to speak, I would say that that's pretty much just as destructive as an addiction, because look what it did to his career.
He's a fucking fraud.
Yeah. He got a walk-on the movie Dodgeball. That was an awesome movie.
Yeah.
And he didn't deserve it.
No, he didn't deserve all these assholes running around with their yellow bracelets, live strong. It's like, yeah, live bullshit. Like, this guy's, I beat testicular cancer, this and that twice. And it's like, well, yeah, you probably got the cancer because you've replaced your blood 5,000 different times with God knows if they were putting rhinoceros blood in him or something. But no wonder you got cancer, you lunatic. So also that you could win a race. And now they got to take you out of the record books. And I'm sure he made millions, right, doing all of this stuff and being a celebrity. But that's just really pathetic and disgusting. And unfortunately, it happens all the time. And then they want to take away the gold medal from Michael Phelps, the swimmer guy, because they found out he was smoking pot while he was competing in the Olympics. And it's like, hold on a second. Wait, this dude was smoking pot and winning swimming races?
A drug enhancing.
No.
If anything, it's the opposite of a performance enhancing drug.
He
marijuana.
Did damn good.
Now, if there's a race and there's a bag of cookies at the other end of the track,
that's cheap.
Then marijuana would be a performance-enhancing drug.
That's right. They would put Funyuns at the end of the finish line, and he was like, "There, man,
pizza,
Funyuns, water, lots of water, man, and some Funyuns." But that's not the same thing. And for these, whatever you want to call them, the people in charge, give them a name, whatever.
The officials.
Authorities.
The authorities,
Official.
right?
Yeah.
For them to try and lump the two into the same category and say Michael Phelps smoking pot is no different than Stretch Armstrong blood doping is ridiculous. Again, we're not condoning the use of any drugs, But if I had to choose between crack cocaine, marijuana, blood doping, sedatives, anabolic steroids, heroin, Valium, you name it.
Crystal meth. You forgot meth.
Poppers, meth, Quaaludes.
Yeah, if you had to pick one.
Okay, yes.
Alcohol.
Yeah.
I'd still pick marijuana every time. Even though it makes me feel like I pissed my pants. I would still choose marijuana. Because
you just have to wear a diaper.
That's right, because drinking too much booze literally makes me piss my pants. So, that's another story. But the anabolic steroids is kind of, I think, the most well-known of the performance-enhancing drugs. Anabolic steroids are the ones that everybody associates with big, buff Arnold Schwarzenegger, Hulk Hogan types, where they've got ginormous muscles and itty-bitty balls. And anabolic steroids have been outlawed for a very, very long time in this country, I think since the early 1980s. However, they are apparently making a bit of a comeback amongst not professional bodybuilders, because they piss test for that and you're not going to get away with it, but amongst, we'll say, the gym crowd, the bro crowd, the people that go to the gym and lift weights, the
meat market people,
the snooky boyfriend type crowd. I'm not gonna throw any ethnicities under the bus here, but let's just say that my wife's family across the pond might know people that are involved in some steroid use. Italians. Sorry, I apologize. I had a tickle in my throat. But they want to get big and buff. They want to look sexy. They want to, use a blow dryer on their hair, and they take anabolic steroids to get buffed. But what's funny about anabolic steroid use is it doesn't make you stronger. So you have these big, puffy people with the big muscles who can't. You said it, not me. You said it.
Guido is not a derogatory term. It's something that they proudly call themselves.
So Guido not being derogatory. Okay.
I'm just saying.
We'll move beyond that. That's fine. So not the same as a WAP.
No.
Okay. Just making sure.
Okay.
And sometimes they refer to themselves as Italian, which is just mispronunciation.
But that's a whole other show.
That's a whole other show. That's
move
lexicon show. We should start a podcast just called Racial Slurs and racial slurs and stereotypes. And we'll have to wear a bag over our heads so nobody kills us. Freedom of speech.
Yeah, and then we'll get millions of listeners.
That's right.
And views.
Thank you, President Trump. The anabolic steroids usage amongst kind of a new generation of backyard weightlifters who just want to bulk up and look good so that they can take selfies and post them on Snapchat. It's dangerous shit, though. This stuff, really fucks with your body. So the idea behind the ergogenic aids is where the anabolic steroids kind of fall under this category of, I believe it's ergogenic aids, ERGOGENIC. It's a performance-enhancing drug that mainly includes stimulants and lean mass builders, Lean mass builders drive or amplify the growth of muscle and lean body mass, and they're also used to reduce body fat. They can also reduce the time it takes to recover from an injury. And I think human growth hormone falls under this category as well. And there's a lot of controversy around HGH and whether or not it's bad for you, terrible for you, or essentially benign. There's a lot of misinformation out there about human growth hormone. They've also found it to be very beneficial in certain medical conditions to help people who have like developmental issues, especially around I believe like internal major internal organs in children or infants. But then you get the bodybuilders who use human growth hormone to try and get big and bulky, or very famously somebody like Barry Bonds or Mark McGwire using human growth hormone to hit home runs in baseball. And they have these giant heads and these giant arms and are breaking all these home run records, only to then be found out later that they were using performance-enhancing drugs to break these records. So I have a question for you. And I know none of us, all three of us, will never claim to be sports fans or very well versed in the game of sport. But does it matter? So if we go through periods of time and science and technology that changed the way we make footballs, changed the material we use to play soccer on, changed the distance of the three-point line in basketball, change the way the distance from the pitcher's mound to the plate, change the size of the strike zone and the material of the baseball bat in Major League Baseball. If there are all these variables in professional sport, and records have been set and broken along the way, then if science creates a way of enhancing the performance of a professional athlete, should it matter that Barry Bonds broke these records while using a performance-enhancing drug that was not banned by Major League Baseball until after the fact? Should it matter? Because I feel if science will continue to improve upon the swimsuits that professional swimmers are wearing, these laser cut suits that the swimmers were wearing a few Olympic cycles ago, and then they banned those swimsuits because all the records were being broken. So they said you can't wear these laser cut swimsuits anymore. You have to wear a regular Speedo and regular swimsuit because it's not fair. But if science continues to move forward, both medical science and the science, the physical, science and technology behind aerodynamics and stuff like that, why not just let it go and not put an asterisk on someone's broken record? Chats, you've had
okay. I think a lot of it comes from well, you hit right on it, fairness. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, like with the whole banning of the swimsuit things, what they're doing is, say for instance, you were on a team in the Olympics and you were from a country that's very well off, and your team is very well funded, you'd be able to afford those laser cut swimsuits. But if you're from somewhere else that's just is using hand-me-downs from like 5 Olympic teams ago, you're at a disadvantage, and it's not because you're less you're less fit swimmers or anything, or the other team is more superior or any of that. It's simply because they got more money and better equipment than you. And so for that
So like
for that
in
same kind of
Kazakhstan, and they're still using, sheep's wool speedos, woven together from the local seamstress. That's not fair when the Americans can use, laser cut Teflon swimsuits.
No.
That's what you're saying.
That's what the authorities are saying in the sport of swimming.
So what about an American-only sport like baseball, where
Same thing.
The balls have changed over time, though. So
but the balls are universal. The balls
but they haven't always
universal.
been.
Everyone uses the same. But when they do change, everyone then uses the same balls. That's when they standardize something. It goes
the
throughout the
regulation.
entire.
Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone uses the same thing, even if it's superior to the previous model or the previous version.
But it will still allow for them to break previously set records by people that were using the old shriveled balls.
And nice.
What?
No, and then new.
Get your head out of the gutter, young man.
It'll just set new records and everything. I mean, really, the materials in the sport itself, I don't think can really be compared much to performance-enhancing drugs, especially if these things are standard and everyone has to use them.
Cool. What do you think, Robinson?
Well, I just learned something interesting about science and the future and human beings, and there have been a whole section of laws that are now written and on the books for something that doesn't even exist yet, and that is transhumanism.
Oh God, that's creepy.
There is going to come a point where people will have their DNA altered to be able to run faster, jump higher, hit harder. Will these people, even though they're not taking any drugs to be sports, performance enhancing, they're just naturally going to be more able to do better things because they have genetics mixed in theirs from different animals. Now, this is a practice that is currently being done. They raise pigs with a certain a limited amount. There's a legal limited amount of human DNA that can be in a pig, and then this pig you can grow that person's DNA that's in that pig. You can grow a new organ in that pig, and then use it for transplant, and the body won't reject it. The amount of DNA that they're allowed to use is up to 50%. That means that this pig is half human. And, what the fuck do you do with that? You can't, if you eat it afterwards, is it cannibalism?
I don't know.
There's a whole, we're talking about sports. And
it's delicious.
We're talking about enhancing using sports-enhanced drugs or performance-enhanced drugs, but when you started talking about science, that just opens up a whole new world, which has nothing really to do with this show, but because this show is about drug addiction, and I don't want to get off topic, but it just made me think of that when you started bringing in all these other scientific aspects of the show.
Well, but to your point, who's to say that with the same science that it's allowing us to produce transplant-worthy organs in other mammals, that they may not somehow be able to isolate the gene that creates addiction, and now it's a free-for-all, and I can use whatever drugs I want with no consequences.
Question.
Similar type thing. Go ahead, make your statement. You don't have permission. It's your show too.
So, coming back to the point of the show, the topic, sports and drugs and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it comes down to ultimately, whether it's genetic alteration or blood doping or anabolic steroid, it's maintaining fairness. because it's ultimately competition. And if another team on another side is able to gain a superior edge through some other means that is not available to the others, it can create that disparity. So ultimately, I think why any of this stuff can be damaging and can be unethical is simply because the whole goal is to maintain fairness.
Right, right. It is a matter of ethics. But for those Guidos that are out there slamming steroids or asteroids or whatever they're slamming, is that addictive?
Well, and I think health risks, right? We talk about the use of a substance being dangerous or damaging, having harmful effects on your body, your personality, and your life in general. I mean, there are many documented cases of what is commonly referred to as roid rage. Right? You look at somebody like the professional wrestler Chris Benoit, who was on these anabolic steroids for God knows how long to maintain this physique for professional wrestling, who ended up snapping however many years ago, 10 years ago, and murdering his wife and son, and then killing himself. And most people attribute this mental break to the long-term effects of having used these anabolic steroids. Right here, straight from the internet, so you know it's true. Health risks can be produced by long-term or excessive doses of anabolic steroids. These effects include harmful changes in cholesterol levels, acne, high blood pressure, liver damage, dangerous changes in the structure of the left ventricle of the heart, conditions pertaining to hormonal imbalances such as gynecomastia, gynecomastia. Chaz, help me out here. Gynecomastia.
Gynecomastia. I don't know. It's like doesn't that mean
that's terrible. Gynecomastia. Oof, that's the worst. Testicular size reduction may also be caused by anabolic steroids, and then the psychological effects that unfortunately they haven't done a whole lot of studies on, because most people that are using these black market steroids, because they've been outlawed by all major sporting bodies, I mean, they still use some of these anabolic steroids to help treat medical conditions. If you have HIV or AIDS and you need to gain weight, they might try these anabolic steroids. Frankly, using medical marijuana might be a smarter, better, safer way, but they still use it sometimes.
Well, marijuana doesn't create muscle mass the way steroids do.
So even if this isn't something that's addicting, it doesn't cause that chemical dependency or psychological dependency, the damage it can do both to your body and to your life and to your mind and all these other things is pretty much along the same lines as many of the other drugs and many other things. Am I off base here, or
no?
Is that making sense?
All yeah. Right. Continue.
Yeah.
And really,
I can.
Go for it, Robinson.
Oh, I was going to say I can see it becoming a mental addiction.
Yeah.
Especially for the super ego people.
Yeah, if you're addicted to winning and you're going to do everything it takes to win, then you're going to do something stupid.
Well, and what's interesting, anabolic steroids specifically, most steroid users, so I don't know what this study was, trying to see here. It was a study between 1999 and the year 2000. So this may have even changed in the last 15 years. But between 1 million and 3 million people, so about 1% of the population, are thought to have misused anabolic steroids in the United States. So they've shown that anabolic steroid users tend to be mostly middle class, heterosexual men, median age about 25 years old, who are non-competitive bodybuilders and non-athletes that use the drugs for cosmetic purposes.
I think that nailed what you said, Robinson. You mentioned superego, but just flat out ego.
Yeah.
In other words, body image and things like that, constantly wanting to
metrosexuals.
Constantly wanting to look good to themselves.
78% of steroid users are non-competitive, non-athletes, and 13% from a Blue Cross Blue Shield study. 13% of these jackasses reported using unsafe injection practices such as reusing needles, and sharing multi-dose vials. And this was a 2007 study.
Wow.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Dumbass. You'd think people would know better than that by now.
Well, because we're not using drugs, Robinson. It's not. I don't have any risk of giving you Hep C because we're not abusing heroin. So
you know what though?
I mean, if you're two bros sharing steroids, bro.
If you're in the Cub Scouts and you take a safety pin and stick it in your finger to draw blood and hand it to the next guy to stick it in his finger to draw blood because you want to be blood brothers, that's the kind of ignorance that's, it's not acceptable, but it's expected because we're talking about children who don't know
that's Darwin,
what they're getting into.
Yeah.
But I mean, in 2007, needle sharing has
25
been
years old, average
across
age.
the world known for like the stupidest thing you can do.
What can I say?
Well, it happens.
Well,
and then they get HIV because one of them has it, and then they all get it, and now they have to take steroids so they don't wither away.
74% of non-medical anabolic steroid users had a post-secondary degree. More had completed college, and fewer had failed to complete high school than is expected from the general population. The same study found that individuals using anabolic steroids for non-medical purposes had a higher employment rate and higher household income than the general population.
It's ego.
It's totally ego. And then when they see themselves looking all, ripped and sexy with six-pack abs, then they have this confidence level, and then they get the job, and then they get the money, and then they continue to use it until it fucks up their brain or their body, and then it's too late. So I see the allure. Don't get me wrong. I see the allure, but it's very dangerous.
Well, I mean, it seems like they had all this other stuff without, even it's not like they took anabolic steroids to get all those things, necessarily. So really that kind of thing where it was a non-competitive, amateur stuff, I think really it is entirely to the benefit of themselves when they look in the mirror to like what they see.
Well, 92% of the non-medical using, basically the illegal steroid using population, believe that the medical community's knowledge of non-medical anabolic steroid use is lacking, and 99% felt that the public has an exaggerated view of the negative side effects of steroid use. Talk about denial. So when we talk about addiction, when the population of drug users gets to nearly 100%, making the excuse that the science is lacking and that the side effects are blown out of proportion, that is typical addict behavior. Right?
Right.
Absolutely. Denial number one.
Heroin users will be the first people to tell you that heroin is not nearly as bad as everybody makes it out to be.
Stoners. Just think of all the amazing things, wonderful things you've ever heard about marijuana from stoners.
Absolutely.
Nicotine. Well, nicotine is very addictive, but and obviously very bad for you. But I read a study back in 1995 that was done by Columbia University, and after their study, they declared nicotine was a temporary cure for several conditions: Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and schizophrenia.
Nicotine?
Nicotine. Because it's a cognitive enhancer. And it's bad for your lungs when you smoke it, but when you consume it in another way, like eating large amounts of kale, because kale is very high in nicotine, or...
Kale?
Kale, yeah. Kale and spinach and all the super green vegetables, leafy vegetables are basically, and cauliflower. Not cauliflower, yeah, cauliflower as well, but Brussels sprouts and broccoli, they're all high in nicotine. But yeah, nicotine is highly addictive, but actually has benefits if you're not smoking it.
Right. What's that cat's name, Chaz?
Cleo.
That's Cleo? She's so big now.
I know. She was a little tiny when you last saw her.
Yeah. Let's see if we can scare her. Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, did you see her jump and climb up onto that thing? Holy shit.
Okay, here's some interesting stuff about the neuropsychiatric effects of steroid use, since this is the tangent we've gone off on a little bit. And that's okay, because I think, again, most people associate performance-enhancing drugs with steroids, right? That's what we think of. So this was very interesting, because this is a 2005 review. Significant psychiatric symptoms, including aggression and violence, mania, and psychosis, and even suicide, have been associated with steroid abuse. Long-term steroid abusers may develop symptoms of dependence and withdrawal upon discontinuation. High concentrations of anabolic steroid use, comparable to those likely sustained by many recreational anabolic steroid users, produce, I don't even know what this word is, apoptic, A-P-O-P-T-O-T-I-C. That's a lot of consonants in one word. Apoptic effects?
It's a storage buildup.
That's just a fucked up word with a lot of consonants. So, clearly, when we're talking about addiction and the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, when we talk about dependence, withdrawal, denial, psychological effects, physical effects, and a substance that is readily abused by individuals seeking to artificially increase something, or that is ego-driven, 100% falls into our defined categories of addictive. And if you are abusing or misusing anabolic steroids for any reason, you run the risk of becoming an addict. And that's where you see some of these guys with no neck and these giant deltoids that touch their earlobes, and they're, can't put their arms down to their sides. Usually they're about my height, 5'6" tall or shorter, because they've got little man Napoleon syndrome, and being big and buff makes them feel more powerful. But it can get to a point where you can't not use it anymore, because if you stop using them, you'll just shrivel up like a whoopee cushion.
Are there support groups? Like, I mean, is there an anonymous for steroids?
Oh, there's gotta be.
Oh, that's a good question.
There's gotta be.
Anabolic Anonymous? Steroids Anonymous?
Here's a good one. Growth defects. High school athletes, because of their age, can cause premature closure of the growth plate, leading to stunted growth. Also, feminization. There are sex-specific side effects of anabolic steroids. Development of breast tissue in males.
That's that gynecomastia.
You're absolutely right.
Stuff, bitch tits.
Vagina cum nastiness, which may arise because of increased conversion of testosterone to estradiol by the enzyme aromatase. Reduced sexual function, temporary infertility, testicular atrophy caused by the suppression of natural testosterone levels, which will inhibit the production of sperm. So these are pretty serious side effects, if you ask me. When you're abusing smack, you can't take a shit. When you're abusing steroids, you grow tits and have no semen in your balls.
But the positive side effect of that is that you can't reproduce your stupid.
Once
there you
again,
go.
Nature wins. Female-specific side effects: masculinization, increase in body hair, permanent deepening of the voice. We've all seen and heard those super buff chicks, and you always know when they're on steroids because their voice does not match their gender anymore. So when they get on the microphone, and some of the men will have the high-pitched Mike Tyson voice, and some of the women will get on the microphone and sound like Barry White. And that's permanent. That sucks. Here's a good one. Female side effects of anabolic steroid use: the masculinization. An enlarged clitoris. So you can end up with an enlarged clitoris.
Or a very small penis.
One and the same.
It's almost like
if you're a lesbian.
Switch. Like,
yeah.
In other words, like if you're one sex, you start taking on traits of the other.
And that brings me to my next point, which is freaking scary. If you're taking anabolic steroids during pregnancy, they can affect fetal development by causing the development of male features in a female fetus and female features in a male fetus.
Or possibly hermaphrodite.
Sure. So, holy shit, right?
This stuff is nasty.
It is. This stuff is crazy.
Like, fetal alcohol syndrome, it's like fetal alcohol syndrome, but it's like all sorts of other, like, unknown, I mean, crack babies and all stuff. But yeah, it has these same detrimental effects.
Yeah.
That anything else can.
But guess what?
What?
When we talk about the schedule status of drugs in the United States.
Oh yes, the schedule.
We know that
the schedule.
Marijuana and crack are Schedule 1 substances. They are both go to jail for possession substances. Anabolic steroids are a Schedule 3. So even with all of these side effects, all of these potentially harmful side effects to you and to your loved ones and to your body, your health, your mental state, your growing fetus, suicide, murder, rage, men growing tits, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, Schedule 3.
What the hell?
Right?
I mean, who writes these schedules? I mean, seriously, do they look at this stuff?
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals, man. Gotta be pharmaceuticals.
And bath salts are still not even a drug.
Yeah.
I still don't know what the hell those are.
They're
bath salts.
You weren't on the show the night that Robinson and I did the show about crazy shit people use to get high. And we talked about bath salts, and there was a dude who I think decided he was going to eat his girlfriend, who was getting the bath salts from Walmart. And they're not bath salts, Chaz, like Epsom salt that you soak your feet in the bathtub. It's called bath salt, like the. You know, right there, Robinson?
Yeah, sorry.
Your cystic fibrosis kicking up again? It's a drug. It's a synthetic drug, and it's basically a stimulant, but it makes you insane. And I mean, I don't even know that they have a schedule attached to them yet. They haven't even been identified by the government as a dangerous substance. Crazy.
Isn't like they're like, what exactly is it? Like, you know, you can say, you know, like, you know, you can say methamphetamine, you can say, you know, like for Ritalin, it's methylphenidate. Does bath salts have a chemical name? Like it's, you know,
yes.
THC in weed, they have all sorts of other stuff like that. Is there a actual name for it, or is it just bath salts?
Yeah, it is. They are synthetic cathinones. Cathinones. CATHINONES.
Cathinones?
Cathinones. Mephedrone. So, yeah.
Math.
Anyway.
Yeah. Blank.
Crazy. Bath salts. Make you crazy. Turn you into a zombie. Make you eat people. There's a whole article in this about the WWE wellness program. And it's interesting because when I was a kid watching professional wrestling growing up, most of the wrestlers were these big giant monsters. And then in the mid-'80s, it started to tone down a little bit. But Vince McMahon, the chairman and creator of the WWE, has famously admitted to having used steroids in the past and having turned a blind eye to steroid use amongst professional wrestlers, taking it all the way through the court system when they were trying to outlaw anabolic steroids for use in professional sports because of their danger, and Vince McMahon being on the opposite side of that saying, well, hold on. The WWE, at the time WWF, we're not professional sports. We're sports entertainment. We're entertainers. We're not in the realm of professional sports like the Major League Baseball and NFL. So we shouldn't be stuck with these same regulations. If my wrestlers want to take steroids, they should be allowed to because they're entertainers, not athletes. And the courts obviously laughed at him and, you know, did not rule in his favor. But following the murder-suicide of Chris Benoit in 2007, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee investigated steroid use in the wrestling industry. They investigated WWE, TNA Wrestling, and asked for documentation of their company's drug policies. Both Linda and Vince McMahon testified, and 75 wrestlers tested positive since 2006. So this is not 1985 or 1997. 2006. 40% of the staff at these wrestling companies are still testing positive for anabolic steroids. So it's still a big problem. Interesting stuff.
So for Schedule 3s, do you get picked up for that if a cop finds them on you?
I don't know. I mean, I would imagine it's still, I mean, at the least a misdemeanor. And if you don't have a prescription, I think having any technically any prescription drug in your possession without a prescription is illegal. Mm-hmm. So why don't we do this? We'll take a break. We'll come back and maybe talk about some other areas of performance-enhancing drugs. We can talk about the sexual performance-enhancing drugs that we kind of started talking about at the beginning of the show, and that should more than likely take us through to the end. And because I think it's very interesting how steroids are vilified, right? Everybody thinks steroids are bad. But nobody really seems to have any problem with the sexual enhancing drugs. And, I mean, even very famously, like the Catholic Church doesn't think that men taking Cialis or Viagra is a bad thing. So, we'll talk about that when we come back. You're listening to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast, streaming live on YouTube.com and coming to you on RadioValencia.fm, 87.9 on your radio dial in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're going to take a quick break, play you a little song, and we'll be back to talk more about performance-enhancing drugs on the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. This is a little tune from not too long ago. It's called Break Ground by your SHHRP favorite band, Arbor Circle. We'll be back. Robinson, don't forget to mute your microphone. We'll see you in just a little bit. Enjoy the song.
To say it's just the end of the day when I'm not coming over. Never knew what was right until the end of the night when I got you on my shoulder. I never knew what went wrong until I made up the song. Now you're here with me, girl. It's just the end of time. It's not the end of the line. 'Cause I'm gonna break down into your underground. 'Cause I'm gonna break down into my underground. Yeah. Never knew what I did, now I can take off the lid of my head and wonder. Never knew what was wrong, it's just the end of the long cold day of the summer. It's just a matter of time, it's just the way that we mind. It's not the end of time, I'm at the end of the line, yeah, 'cause I'm gonna break down into your underground. 'Cause I'm gonna break down into my underground, yeah. Rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again. It rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose. It puts the lotion in the basket. It puts the lotion in the basket. lotion in the fucking basket. Bitch, put the lotion in the basket. Into my underground. Yeah. I'll tell you breakdown. Into your underground. Yeah. Yeah. Break it, break it, yeah,
Welcome back to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. I am still joined by my good friends, Robinson and Chaz. We are talking about performance-enhancing drugs. Cause, effect, side effects, addiction, problems. We're going to talk about, for our second half or so of the show, we saved the best for last, ladies and gentlemen. Talked a little bit about the recreational and non-recreational use of drugs like Adderall and Ritalin. We talked about different types of performance enhancers like blood doping, anabolic steroids being the main topic of conversation so far tonight, but we are going to spend the rest of the evening, ladies and gentlemen, talking about something that everyone listening or watching this program has heard of, has been witness to, heard stories about, or potentially, if you are a man aged 20 years or older, may have even tried recreationally out of curiosity or out of necessity. We're also going to talk about the very controversial topic of whether or not sexual enhancing drugs, such as Viagra or Cialis, can be what we here at the Sober Happy Hour refer to as addictive. Because that study is still being studied. The jury's still out on whether or not Viagra can be addictive. And I have my opinions, and I'm sure that these two fine gentlemen I call my co-hosts have their opinions as well. So, first, I would like to talk about the incredible availability of so-called Viagra counterfeits or alternatives that claim to perform in the same way as Viagra by increasing one's virility or making you last longer during a sexual experience,
making your dick hard,
a big stiff boner.
Big, hard, stiff boner that hurts because it won't go away.
Right. That you can't not have sex because of this ginormous hard-on. And a lot of these are supplements, so they tend to be totally safe because they're herbal supplements, and most of them are nonsense like horny goat weed and
because all herbs are totally safe.
Well, to be sold the way that they're sold at the Circle K down the street, you've got Enzyte, Boost. I can't think of any other ones. Lightning Rod, Rock Hard for Men.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So most of these are both useless and benign. What I want to talk about are the pharmaceuticals, the drugs, the real ones. And quickly, before we get into the discussion, Viagra and Cialis and the other ones work basically by increasing blood flow to the genital region and dilating blood vessels, essentially making it easier to achieve the desired result of a big fat boner. Because that's all that an erection is. It is an increase of blood flow to the penis, creating, just like blowing up a balloon. You fill it up with blood, it's going to fill up with blood. I wonder if you were to stab a penis with an erection.
You had to go there, didn't you?
I'm just curious.
Dude.
If it would just like squirt blood across the room.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to try.
Yeah, let's
not going to try.
Get the garden shears. Chunk, chunk. Take 4 of them, or 8.
There is, though, in some of these alternative to Viagra, all natural performance enhancers, sexual enhancement supplements, they've been found to contain a chemical called tadalafil. Tadalafil. Yes.
That's a generic name for Viagra, isn't it?
I don't know, but it's an active ingredient in diabetes medications, especially glibin. Oh, Jesus Christ! These fucking consonants. GLIBENCLAMIDE. Like, give me a break. Who comes up with this shit? Glibidibalaminide. Lowers blood sugar. And when taken by somebody that doesn't have diabetes, can cause blood sugar levels to drop frighteningly low. More than a dozen deaths have been attributed to the use of these supplements with the diabetes drugs in them. People have fallen into a coma from low blood sugar. So, bottom line, avoid the supplements to enhance your sex performance. Date
Unless you
a
want
prettier girl. Get a hotter wife. All right.
Well, one thing that has, and again, I'm just, urban legend statistics type thing, coming from a public health perspective. There have been actually an increase in STDs among the senior population, particularly in places like Sun City and other retirement centers, and they attribute this to the availability of these sexual and performance-enhancing drugs. And the reason being is that the last time many of these people were sexually active, there was no such thing as AIDS. And other things, they are seeing a rise in other things such as Hep C, gonorrhea, all those other wonderful things, syphilis indeed. But HIV rates, they noticed, went up too. But again, it's because they're now back to being young and thinking in that time period, not this one. So there's that deleterious effect. There's also, and we could go into this, imagine what that could do for someone, a sex addiction.
Totally.
It could just exacerbate that.
So, aside from Viagra, there's apparently, and it may be mostly in the UK, but there's this new phenomena. Thank you. Of taking oxytocin as a Viagra alternative. Oxytocin has been dubbed the cuddle drug. It's a chemical that helps mothers bond with their babies.
And it's naturally produced during breastfeeding.
Right.
Stimulation of a woman's nipples will cause her body to produce oxytocin.
They're putting this on par with Viagra as something that could potentially, instead of, so, all right, let's back up just a little bit. So, the Viagra conversation is pretty incredible. The Daily Mail, I went with like a UK publication because they sometimes tend to be a little less biased. But young men are getting addicted to Viagra. Addicted in quotes. It's not the same kind of addiction that we talk about on this show. But men in their 20s and 30s are using Viagra on a regular basis due to performance anxiety issues. And they're becoming psychologically addicted to Viagra, thinking that they need it in order to have sex. Since Viagra was originally created with the idea of allowing older men with erectile dysfunction to achieve an erection and have sex again, there wasn't the idea that young men with performance anxiety issues would start utilizing it and then using it over and over and over again. The most recent study says that Viagra may be one of the most widely used drugs in the world, saying that more than 20 million men have used Viagra.
Damn.
Right? So, when you're young...
I have stock in Pfizer.
I was just going to say...
I do.
Good.
There was...
Pfizer is the company that makes Viagra.
Yes, and most of our male listeners have probably received emails claiming to be from Pfizer about getting Viagra shipped to their house from Canada or something like that. Right?
When I get my dividends, I have them pay me in product.
Nice.
Nice.
But a doctor, director of youth services at the Howard Brown Health Center in Chicago, an adolescent physician, said that teenage boys were regularly trying to convince him to write prescriptions for Viagra because young boys, the pressure to have sex is so great now that young boys in their late teens who feel like they must be
young boys in their late teens?
Well, young boys meaning they're young boys, not adult men. Like, they're still young. A 17-year-old is still young.
Okay.
Are feeling increasingly pressured into having sex and being sexually active, but they are mortified of the idea of being sexually active because, hey, having sex for the first time, that's scary business. You don't know what the fuck you're doing. You don't know if you're going to do it right. You don't know if you're going to, when there's, rap songs and pop songs about, minute men, men who can't keep it up and, people with premature ejaculation problems. Like, there's so much pressure that Viagra sounds like a great idea to an 18-year-old kid who's never had sex before. Then I'll be able to perform at my best. I'm sorry, 18-year-old boys. You will never be at your best sexually when you are 18 years old. You may think that you are, but the reality is practice makes perfect. Do not expect to be a Don Juan the first handful of times that you have sex with someone else, and that's okay.
And I think that, performance enhancing is kind of a misnomer for, drugs like Viagra and such. I mean, really, you stay hard longer.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're, it doesn't mean you're better in the sack. It just means you're staying hard longer. That's all.
Well, being harder, longer, and harder, Chaz, that doesn't make me a better lover?
No.
Oh, man.
You've been doing it wrong.
Ruined my life. So, college-age students take Viagra to parties, or they get it offered to them, and guys who hear about friends' girlfriend problems, they'll half joke about maybe he needs some Viagra to spice things up, or it's ridiculous because, like Chaz just said, all Viagra is meant to do is get an old dude who can't get the blood flow to his wang any longer to achieve an erection. It doesn't make you last longer, doesn't make you have better rhythm, it doesn't make you understand
it doesn't
the
make you a better
biology
lover
of a woman.
Or anything like that.
No. And it certainly doesn't make you understand the internal workings of a female any better. It's not the size of the boat, gentlemen. It's the motion in the ocean. So, most young men try Viagra for the first time for recreational use or out of curiosity, and not because they have any trouble achieving or sustaining a viable erection for sex. But a lot of first-time users, they're impressed by the relative stability of drug-induced erections and the extra stamina it may seem to impart. And since men generally take pride in their sexual performance, young men especially, who are very eager to impress their partners, are susceptible to developing a pattern of psychological dependence on Viagra, even after just the first time of using it.
Wow.
Right. So there's a story in here about a dude named Daniel who was a club promoter. He was 20 years old when he tried it for the first time. He had never had an issue with erectile dysfunction, but he liked that he could stay harder longer and soon developed a dependence on the drug. So he started stockpiling Viagra, and he would spend some like $1,500 a year in spite of warnings from his doctor about the long-term effects that included heart problems and hearing loss. Hello. He'd restock the drug during visits to Spain. He would go to Spain and he would buy it on the gray market. Or not even. In Spain, apparently, because they're Spanish, the doctors will just prescribe it to anyone on the spot. You ask for Viagra, they write you a prescription. That's it. So there was a story about a 24-year-old guy who killed himself on Valentine's Day because apparently his girlfriend found out that he had been taking Viagra in order to be able to have sex with him for the duration of their relationship. And when she found out and confronted him about this, the embarrassment that he felt was enough for this dude to take his own life.
Was it because, like, she thought he had to, in other words, oh, God, I can't, like, I cannot do this. I have to have Viagra in order to sleep with her. I mean, was it that kind of thing?
Well, so here's what the experts are saying. Another factor in the growing use of Viagra among young men is that women in the 21st century are more sexually confident, assertive, and demanding of their sexual partners, and since men, young men especially, are inexperienced, and when you're inexperienced and you're young and your sexual partner is also inexperienced and young, you sort of depend on the relative inexperience and submissiveness of your partner to build the sexual confidence. So if your sexual partner is overconfident and aggressive, you may feel self-confident or...
You mean self-conscious.
I'm sorry, self-conscious. you may lack self-confidence. I'm sorry, I'm kind of half reading, half paraphrasing, and may not have the stamina that you think is required to satisfy a demanding female partner. But most women are unaware of the extreme susceptibility of men to erectile problems under circumstances in which they feel this extreme expectation of performance. So when you have this confident female who wants to get the shit fucked out of her, and this inexperienced guy, because the girl thinks that the guy wants her to be aggressive and confident, when she may be just as inexperienced as he is, but because porno and the movies have taught her that she needs to be this cougar, now the guy feels, holy shit, I've got to live up to these standards. I can't do it. And because I think I can't do it, now I really can't do it, and I can't even achieve an erection. So, Viagra. So, not to blame this on women. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But, shit, I work with young women. And I'll tell you right now, I'm a happily married man. But I have seen these women and how aggressive they can be with other men. And when I was that age, I couldn't imagine being under that kind of pressure. So there was a woman in this article that admitted that she realized it was partly her sexual demands that triggered performance anxieties in her partner, leading to erectile problems. And she said, when sex wasn't great, I was honest about how frustrated I was from the outcome, which made the problem worse.
She took ownership.
Right, but that doesn't change the fact that she drove this guy to using Viagra because she would tell him that he was a shitty lay. So, it really, I mean, this overuse, this growing number of Viagra use in young people could very well be related to the societal changes to sexual behavior and people having to grow up faster and women wanting to have sex younger and being more aggressive and more assertive, and then men thinking, wow, I can't possibly satisfy this person, so I need a drug to help me get there. There's Viagra, Levitra, Cialis, drugs that have become some of the most prescribed pharmaceuticals on the planet. There's got to be a connection there psychologically somewhere.
Sex.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
It's sex sells, and anything that can make sex better, or at least seem better, or make it at least seem like it makes sex better, even if it doesn't, that'll sell too. Yeah.
So, severe drops in blood pressure, extreme dizziness, fainting, heart attack, hearing loss. Those are just some of the side effects of some of these drugs.
You're altering blood flow. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. You're completely altering the natural flow of blood in your body, and that just can't be positive all the time. Yeah.
Nope. And if you're taking it daily, when this shit was first created, the idea was maybe that a middle-aged man who's been in a long-term relationship who has an erectile dysfunction order might take Viagra before sex a couple times a month, but you have a younger person taking it 3, 4, or 5 times a week. I could only imagine the stress that could put on your cardiovascular system. So it's serious business, both honestly serious business, billions of dollars. So it's not going away anytime soon, but just something to remember, gentlemen. Maybe we have some younger listeners, and maybe somebody who has struggled with an addiction to a different type of substance in the past. When we talk about addictive behavior, the idea of needing one thing to achieve another thing is something that addicts regularly deal with. It is just a mindset. And if you spent years addicted to pain medication or heroin or morphine or methadone, and you struggled sexually because of the addiction to that drug, it may seem very enticing to start using a drug like Viagra to get back in to normal sex routines. But be careful, because the abuse of Viagra can be very, very dangerous, or drugs like Viagra, if you're using it and it's not being prescribed by a doctor and monitored by that doctor.
And taken as prescribed.
Correct. Sudden vision loss, chest pain, irregular heartbeat, swelling of the hands, ankles, or feet, shortness of breath, changes in your vision, penis erection that is painful or lasts more than 4 hours, less serious side effects, warmth or redness in your face, neck, or chest, stuffy nose, headache, memory loss temporary, upset stomach, back pain, diarrhea. Sounds great. There is a new drug.
This is all Viagra, correct?
That was all Viagra, but it is almost identical for Cialis and Levitra.
I've tried.
Although Cialis has an added one. There's one more in Cialis that's not in Viagra. Seizures. That one's not in the Viagra list. That one's only in the Cialis list.
I've tried Cialis and it didn't work very well, but it gave me a horrible headache.
That sounds almost like it works on neurons.
Cialis is a little bit different because it's supposed to be something that you don't have to take right before sex.
Right, and you don't stay hard the whole time. Only when you get aroused does it make your dick hard.
Magic.
No, so in other words, Viagra works off of blood flow. This stuff works off of like nerves. That's
Yeah.
And
there's another one called Staxin.
Who?
Staxin. Staxyn. Staxin. Is that on the list? Made by Bayer.
Ban. Okay. No, it's Sticks.
Staxin. That sounds like something that hipsters are going to start naming their babies in a few years.
It comes in one of those little gel strips that you put under your tongue.
Yeah. Sublingual strip.
Yeah.
So, before we go, I want to talk a little bit about a little pink pill going to be sold soon now that it has been approved by the FDA under the name Addy? 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 A-D-D-Y-I? Addy?
Addy.
But it's basically, it's being called female Viagra.
It is the same ingredients.
Well, it's not.
No.
This whole concept is to basically take a woman who has lost interest in sex and make her horny again. So it has nothing to do with giving a woman an erection. Personally, I don't think that would be very attractive. To me, at least, I'm straight. I don't want my wife to have a boner. It is essentially was a drug that was developed originally as an antidepressant. So it is adjusting chemicals in the brain.
So its major side effect is now its new purpose.
Right. And they're saying specifically that the drug treats a fake disorder that they've literally just made up called hypoactive sexual desire disorder, HSDD. So basically, women who have a worthless boyfriend who plays video games all day, who might roll over and say, "Wanna fuck?" every once in a while, and she goes, "I'm not really in the mood." Well, yeah, that's because your boyfriend's a dick. Now, women get to think that there's something wrong with them. And they have hypoactive sexual desire disorder. A lack of libido.
You know what they're preying on? They're not just preying on sex, they're preying on insecurity.
Absolutely.
Pharmaceutical companies know that we're all insecure, and now they just tapped into the female market.
So this study has shown that ADI has minimal effects, realistically, because the blind studies they did with placebo show that it is hardly useful. It really doesn't seem to work very well. Has minimal effects, but potentially severe side effects. Women taking the drug reported around one more sexually satisfying event in a month compared to placebo. One more compared to the placebo. But the supporters, of course, say that this small benefit is worthwhile.
Just have more sex.
I want. They
Your odds of having a good one will go up.
I want to want my husband. It is that simple, said Amanda, one of the women involved in the trials. I want to want my husband. Then perhaps get a new husband.
I was like, dude, lady, that's your fault.
I think that's what MDMA is for.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. They should. I don't know if that's still prescribable.
So you cannot take alcohol while you're taking Adiya. You cannot drink alcohol. It is
the chick pill.
The female Viagra. You cannot drink, which means you will have to work that much harder to make yourself want your husband, who you have not wanted for 30 years.
Just don't take the pill and keep drinking.
But here's the best part. Viagra can be taken shortly before having sex, right? 30 minutes to 4 hours is the recommended time period before you have sex.
Yeah.
Adiyi must be taken daily. You are prescribed this as a once daily, everyday pill. And you cannot drink while you're on it, meaning in order to take it, you cannot drink.
Well, I think that's why they want you to take it. They want the women to take it before they go to bed. I think.
Well, that's like with every medication that's like, an antidepressant or something, they say, do not consume alcohol with it, but I'm on them and I drink, and so there's also, all sorts of black box things that say you shouldn't do this, shouldn't do that, but you still can. So there.
So I just don't see the benefits of this, and with the way that there was lobbying to the FDA to get this approved with such minimal success in the trials, one satisfying sexual experience in a month.
What company makes it?
I just read it.
I don't know.
But I think you nailed it on the head, Mike.
Sprout Pharmaceutical.
Yep, Sprout Pharmaceutical.
It's kind of like that, snake oil salesman. They create something, they prey on your insecurities, they prey on your fears, and then suddenly they come along with something to, make it all right.
Yeah. Instead of identifying the real issue in most of these cases, which is probably something psychological that through some therapy could probably be addressed. And I think this company, this small pharmaceutical company who developed this medication, sold the company for like $7 billion to a bigger company, probably Pfizer. And the medical status of this hyposexual desire disorder have been disputed by numerous psychiatrists. Low libido in women cannot be treated in the same way as erectile dysfunction, so even just to call this female Viagra is totally disingenuous and probably kind of dangerous and insulting. Quote from one of these doctors, a clinical psychologist and certified sex therapist, says women's sexuality is a very complicated thing. It is not a matter of just taking a pill. By the way, and then all of a sudden the lights go on. This was a quote. And I agree with that. Because men, again, guy, taking the Viagra at 25, if your chick doesn't want you,
you're not going to get her back.
Buy her flowers.
It's an NDDI, a norepinephrine dopamine disinhibitor.
So it's an antidepressant.
Yeah. It works off of doesn't work off serotonin. It's interesting.
No, it does the opposite.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So, as we wind down, we have a few minutes left. We'll take a poll. Gentlemen, performance-enhancing drugs as a whole, addictive or non-addictive?
Addictive.
Mentally addictive, not physically.
Yeah.
Well, we know that anabolic steroids can be physically addictive and there can be withdrawals and detox and all that stuff. But something like a sexual enhancing drug like Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, and this female one, I agree with you. Psychologically addictive, probably not physically addictive, but very dangerous to continue to use over long periods of time.
Addictive behavior can, associate with them too. So yeah, it all kind of works in a perfect storm kind of thing.
Agreed.
My recommendation, whether you're getting it from a doctor or from some fucking lab in India, is take a small amount and wait and see. Just do a little bit if you need to experiment with it. I can't believe how many people I see who just go all balls out and take, more than what's required because they think it's going to be better that way. If one is good, then two is great,
Right. Especially with something like Viagra. You could literally kill yourself taking more than the recommended dosage, especially if it's the first time you've ever taken it. Somebody like me who takes a daily dose of a daily dose prescribed by my doctor for hypertension, I am not the ideal candidate for something like Viagra.
That's going to mess with your blood flow.
I could literally kill myself. So, not a good idea if I already suffer from high blood pressure. And then what's really interesting is some people actually have the result of a sudden drop in blood pressure taking something like Viagra. So it's almost like these side effects can contradict each other, and you never know how they're going to affect you.
Depending on the individual's chemistry, which no pharmacy can know that beforehand.
And that's exactly how Ritalin works.
So, in the end, I think it's hard to label performance-enhancing drugs as addictive in the same way as some of our old standards, like crack and heroin, alcohol, and methamphetamines. But I think for being dangerous, for being harmful to your health, and potentially destructive to your relationships, I think they're right up there, and I'm glad we had this conversation. If there's anybody out there struggling with an anabolic steroid addiction, I know that there is treatment out there. I'm sorry, I had the page pulled up and I closed it. But recovery.org is is not the best place. It's a great place to get some information. Ah, damn it. I had it up. But there are programs. I apologize. I had it pulled up and I closed the page by accident. There are programs similar to your group therapy type programs, your 12-step programs for people that are needing to recover from long-term abuse of steroids and performance-enhancing drugs like that, because it will change your life. You could end up with body image issues. You could end up with eating disorders and things of that nature, or you could start ballooning out and become obese and type 2 diabetes and things like that when you stop taking these drugs. So it is important, if you've been abusing or using these drugs for a long time, that you seek professional help. And there's plenty of help out there. So we have an excellent conversation, gentlemen. Thank you for your input and all of the research that went into it, both in real time and prior to the show airing. That sound means we have come to the end. We have reached the end of the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. We come to you every Saturday night from 10 to midnight Pacific time. We'll be back next week at 10 o'clock. Join us on YouTube if you want to watch the video. Download the podcast on iTunes. Please rate and review if you would be so kind. We love 5-star reviews. Join us on Radio Valencia from midnight to 2 a.m. every Saturday night, Sunday morning for the previous week's episode streaming live, and 87.9 FM on your radio dial in the San Francisco Bay Area. You can get us at Sober Happy Hour on Twitter, facebook.com/soberhappyhour, soberhappyhour.com. And if you want to shoot us an email, we'd love to answer your email questions on the air, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. But that'll do it for us this evening. We will be back next week. Chaz and Robinson, thank you so much. And if you or yours are considering getting sober from steroids, drugs, or anything else, I highly recommend it. That's it, boys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.